Well, hello, everybody. This is Dr. David Jockers, and today's topic is keto good for menopausal women? I get this question all the time. Obviously, there's a lot of changes that take place in women and just their hormones and their quality of life as they go through perimenopause and into menopause. And so let's examine today how the ketogenic diet really works for menopausal women, if it's going to be something that could be good for them or not. So that's what we're going to do today. And so as we look at menopause in general, so we know that, typically the female cycle, and I have a whole video on the female cycle that you could look at and how ketogenic diet can play a role with that. But basically, as we look at this, the perimenopause years can last 6 years. They end 1 year after your last period. So you start to have basically more spacing, more gapping between your monthly cycles. And basically until it goes 1 year between your last cycle, and that's called menopause. So you're in perimenopause while you're having, cycles every 3 months or whatever it is. Okay, usually occurs in your 40s. Your estrogen levels are dipping irregularly. You have another hormone called follicle stimulating hormone, FSH, that comes out to release the egg from the ovaries, and that causes a big rise in estrogen as that happens. And so you're not stimulating this FSH. You've got less eggs in your ovaries as well. And then your estrogen levels start to go down. Periods become more and more unpredictable and less frequent. With menopause, again, you're not there until it's been 12 straight months, 1 full year of no periods, and then you're considered in menopause. And the average age is 52. Estrogen levels drop dramatically, which causes certain natural changes in the body, which one of the main things that people experience, things like hot flashes. They feel hot and flushed from time to time. And also estrogen is a building hormone. So oftentimes they can end up with increased amount of bone loss as well. And we'll talk about how to address that. And then post-menopause, anytime after menopause, basically is considered post-menopause. So once you get into menopause, it's also considered post-menopause, kind of similar terms. And estrogen levels continue to drop. So again, it's just kind of the continual progression there. Okay, now hormonal fluctuations. So you can see these different hormones, LH in the blue scattered lines there. And so you can see kind of how that will rise there in the 40s, okay? And progesterone, estrogen are the main hormones, and they're kind of continuously going down, all right? And so you'll see there at some point, you kind of get this pretty big drop there with estrogen and progesterone as well. And so basically, as these hormones drop, women are going to experience different issues involved with menopause. And so typically, a typical cycle, the first 2 weeks of the cycle, a woman is estrogen dominant. The last 2 weeks, progesterone boosts up to balance estrogen. And typically what happens as women reach menopause is that estrogen will actually be produced from belly fat. So estrogen is not only produced from the adrenal glands, same thing with progesterone, but it's also produced from belly fat. So the more belly fat you have, the more menopausal, perimenopausal types of symptoms you're going to experience, more estrogen dominance, because you're going to have an improportionate ratio of estrogen to progesterone. You won't experience as much of these symptoms if you have a more balanced ratio of estrogen to progesterone. But when that ratio comes off, typically due to poor liver function and also belly fat, and belly fat's often associated with insulin resistance, then you're going to have an increased amount of symptoms associated with perimenopause and menopause. And so when it comes to nutrition, the 6 biggest mistakes I see menopausal women making, one is they're not hydrating well. Hydration is so important to filter out artificial estrogens. So we've got a whole world that's, in a sense, coming at us that's boosting estrogen levels. Insulin, when we have blood sugar imbalances, that has a estrogen elevating effect and that's not gonna impact, it's not gonna benefit progesterone. So the key here is a good ratio between estrogen and progesterone. When we are dehydrated, our liver's not gonna be able to function as well, neither is our gut. We're not gonna be able to eliminate artificial estrogens. Again, these artificial estrogens are coming in from toxins. So plastic exposure, cosmetics, all these types of things bring in xenoestrogens that our liver has got to deactivate, and then we've got to get out through our urine and our sweat, as well as respiration, and also through our stool. So if we're not hydrating our body well, we're not going to move those drainage pathways, and we're going to end up with a high amount of artificial estrogens. So really getting insulin under control with a good quality diet, as well as getting the liver, the gut, the drainage pathways really flowing well to get these artificial estrogens out is so important here for menopause to prevent these sorts of menopausal symptoms. Consuming too little fat. A lot of women, of course, want to lose fat, so they're on a lower fat diet because that's what they believe is going to help. But actually, we need those healthy fats. Those healthy fats are going to help balance our blood sugar and help keep insulin under control so we don't keep boosting up estrogen. A lot of women are eating toxins. So these toxins, again, we find in plastics, we find in processed foods. They're also oftentimes putting them on their skin with cosmetics. So these toxins are going to boost up artificial estrogen levels in their body. They're also going to overstimulate insulin, which is going to cause higher levels of estrogen, lower levels of progesterone in the body. They're going to get this imbalanced ratio of estrogen and progesterone. Too much sugar and carbs, again, that's driving up the insulin levels, causing estrogen to go up. So when insulin goes up, estrogen goes up. That's so important to understand here. When insulin goes up, estrogen goes up. So we need things and strategies to keep insulin under control. Consuming too much soy. So soy has phytoestrogens, and those phytoestrogens, again, are going to boost up estrogen levels. Most women don't need don't need extra estrogen. They need to support their progesterone levels. And so I don't recommend consuming soy. And then also they're taking calcium supplements. The thing is, with calcium, typically most women need more magnesium, more vitamin D, more vitamin K2. They also need better protein digestion in order to support their bones. They're told to take calcium to support their bones. It's typically not the best scenario. In fact, extra calcium in the blood without the right amount of vitamin D, the right amount of vitamin K2, the right amount of vitamin A, the right amount of magnesium. Without those things, it's not going to get into the bones. Instead, it's going to keep circulating in the bloodstream, oftentimes accumulating in the kidneys, contributing to things like kidney stones, in the gallbladder, as well as in plaque in our various arteries, and then also in our joints, decaying our joints, causing bone spurs in our joints faster. You don't need extra calcium. The best thing to do is add in extra magnesium, vitamin D, vitamin K2, sometimes vitamin A can be helpful. Omega-3 fatty acids can be helpful here for good bone health, and getting good protein digestion is super important as well. Now, the reason why I am a big fan of doing keto during menopause is really these 4 reasons. Number 1, lowers inflammation. A ketogenic diet is really powerful for keeping inflammation under control and also improves energy levels. Okay, so it's going to help lower insulin, stabilizing your blood sugar. And when you do that, when you lower insulin, you naturally lower inflammation. When you lower inflammation gets in the way of our body's ability to produce good, high quality energy and to be able to think sharply and quickly. So when we lower inflammation, naturally we have more energy. We also have better mental function. We're going to reduce the risk of cognitive decline. And of course, insulin is also a fat storage hormone. So when we lower inflammation, we lower insulin, we're also going to burn fat for fuel more effectively. And that's really what a ketogenic diet does. And so the most common issues I see in menopause that we need to address, and these are issues where women may struggle on a ketogenic diet. One is low stomach acid levels. Okay, this is really important because we need good high quality stomach acid in order to sterilize the food that's coming in, to keep bacteria, parasites, things like that out of our gut. On top of that, it's also very important for breaking down and metabolizing proteins effectively, and for ionizing key minerals like zinc and iron and nutrients like B12. And so got to have good stomach acid levels. If we don't, we're going to cause more inflammation throughout the body. We're going to get malabsorption, and we're not going to be able to produce the energy that we want and that we need. Okay, the other one is a sluggish gallbladder, which oftentimes goes hand in hand with low stomach acid levels. But the other issue with the gallbladder is oftentimes that's compounded by low thyroid hormone activity, because if we're not getting good thyroid hormone expression at the cell, we're not going to have good bile flow. And so we got to make sure that the thyroid's working well, that we're producing enough stomach acid, or we're supporting our stomach acid levels, and we're getting good bile release. So these things all go hand in hand, and it can be a vicious cycle where perhaps we have a gut infection. That gut infection causes autoimmunity to the thyroid. And it also burdens the liver. So we're getting poor thyroid hormone production and conversion into active T3, which slows down our body's ability to produce stomach acid, which then also slows down bile flow. And now we have a lot of issues, and we try to eat a higher fat diet, and we end up feeling more sluggish. We end up constipated. We end up with worsening health. And so we've got to address the thyroid here for sure, right? While we support the stomach acid levels and the gallbladder function. And if it is a gut infection, that we address, the root cause and get rid of the gut infection as well. So here's 10 ways to improve stomach acid. These are things all of us really can be doing on a daily basis to help protect this vital digestive juice, and really all of our digestive juices, because stomach acid initiates the bile release, and it also initiates pancreatic enzyme release. So one is take stress off the gut by using liquid nutrition throughout the day. Do smoothies, are really good. Sometimes green juices, things like that can be really, really helpful, because the blender's already done the job of the digestive system. So we don't need as much digestive juice production. We're able to get these nutrients in a more absorbable manner. Using ginger, doing things like ginger tea or juicing ginger can be really great for digestive juice production, also great for reducing inflammation throughout the bodies. Hydrating our body really well, but not with meals. This is key. If you're drinking a lot with your meal, you're going to dilute your stomach acid, and that's not what we want to do. That's going to actually put more stress on our gut. So it's much better to be drinking a lot away from meals and drinking very little with meals. I only recommend just a small amount if you're taking supplements with your meal. Other than that, if your meals if they're a shake, you really won't need extra fluid, because you're already drinking liquid nutrition. If you're eating a solid food meal, make sure you have a lot of vegetables, right? You see this little thing, salmon and asparagus there. Make sure you have a lot of vegetables, asparagus, broccoli, cauliflower, maybe a big salad, things like that. That's going to provide natural electrolytes as well as hydration for your system. You'll notice that you're not really thirsty as long as you're hydrating well, again, away from meals and consuming vegetables with your meals. Also, hold off on water after a meal. I'd recommend waiting at least 30 minutes after you can finish consuming your meal before you're drinking any significant amount of water. So, and then oftentimes up to an hour, hour and a half before you start really hydrating your body, so you get as optimal digestion as possible. Get the food out of the stomach and into the small intestine before you start drinking a lot of water. You want to use things like lemon, lime, and apple cider vinegar, these natural organic acids. Those are going to help to metabolize the meat, the vegetables more effectively. So basically helping to start the digestive process before it even gets into your body. And I think that's very important to take stress off your gut. You also want to eat protein foods at the beginning of the meal. That's because stomach acid will be produced, and it's going to drop to the bottom of the stomach just based on gravity. So you want, like if you're eating chicken or fish or beef or something like that, you want it in and kind of near the bottom of the stomach. So that way, as it sits there, the acid really has a chance to break it down. It's literally marinating in the acid, as opposed to eating a big salad first and then having the meat and having it more towards the middle or the top of the stomach. It's going to get less concentrated activity of the acid. So I'd recommend doing it in the beginning of the meal. Using fermented vegetables can be helpful. Kimchi, sauerkraut, pickles, things like that. Bitter herbs, so things that are bitter, naturally stimulate digestive juice production. So that's why apple cider vinegar, lemon lime can be helpful. Fermented veggies, fermented drinks like coconut water kefir or apple cider vinegar, stuff like that can be really helpful as well. And then 10th, which I believe is probably the most important, is eating your largest meal when you're most relaxed. So when you're eating a big meal, you can't be eating on the go, eating, and having stressful conversations. You want to be in a relaxed state. I recommend praying before your meal, putting your body in a state of gratitude. So you're naturally increasing what we call your vagal tone, the vagus nerve that activates stomach acid, bile, pancreatic enzymes, that activates intestinal contractions. We want to improve that vagal tone, the actual activity coming from the vagus nerve. We do that when we're relaxed, when we're in a parasympathetic mode, and that's going to really help with your overall digestion. So super important there. Now, a lot of women are dealing with thyroid issues, and I'm a huge fan of supporting the thyroid, whether it's with thyroid medications or Armor Thyroid or Nature Thyroid, some sort of bioidentical. We also have a great supplement on my online store called Thyroid Strong that I use with my clients. It's a bovine thyroid glandular. On top of that, it's got things like selenium and iodine and stuff like that to help support thyroid hormone production. Okay, and other aspects we'll do for hypothyroid, maybe carb cycling, like adding in a little bit more healthy carbs once a week, right? Or kind of figuring out the right scenario for that individual. When we do consume more carbs, when we increase insulin levels, we are going to stimulate more thyroid hormone production and conversion to T3. However, if we do too much carbs, we're going to over promote inflammation, which is going to blunt the thyroid. So it's got to be like the right amount of carbs at the right basically intervals. So we don't want too much carbs too many days in a row. But at the same time, we don't want to go too long low carb if somebody is dealing with hypothyroid, to where we're not getting the right activation of the thyroid hormone. So it's going to be unique and different for everybody. Okay. But I'll typically start people with like a 30-day ketogenic approach, supporting the thyroid, supporting stomach acid, digestive enzymes, bile, using different supplements for that. Having them consume things like MCT oil, sometimes exogenous ketones can be really helpful here. And then starting to figure out the best carb cycling approach, where we increase carbs a little bit. Usually somewhere between 80 to 100 grams is good when we do increase carbs. Ketogenic diet's usually under 50 grams, sometimes as low as 10 to 30 grams of net carbs. So we'll bump it up one day and then bump it back down to kind of get this right carb cycling approach, where we get the right expression of thyroid hormone, whereas we're not over stimulating insulin and overdoing the insulin and inflammatory pathways. So there's a science to that, and I go over it in the article that accompanies this video. So check that out as well. And if there's one key supplement that I make sure my menopausal women are on, I mean, I could talk about a lot of them: omega-3s, vitamin D, oftentimes probiotics can be really helpful. But I would say magnesium for sure. Magnesium is so critical, and it's like, like the way that our body uses magnesium is like how a car uses oil. We need it all the time. So I find magnesium to be super helpful for menopausal women. And again, talk about that in the article that accompanies this video. Hopefully this was very helpful and supportive to you guys, and I will see you in a future online training. If you do have questions, be sure to put them in the comments box below. Do my best to address those. Be blessed, guys. We'll see you at a future training. Bye-bye.